All right, welcome. Today we are diving deep into the CDL bus pre-trip inspection. And look, this isn't going to be about just memorizing some long, boring list. No way. We're talking about developing a true inspector's mindset, a way of thinking that's going to keep you and your passengers safe, day in and day out. So let's get right into it.
So let me ask you a question right off the bat. Picture this. You see two drivers getting ready for their route. One of them is just, going through the motions, ticking boxes on a clipboard. The other one, they're a real pro. You can just tell. So what's the difference? What really separates them? What's that secret ingredient? And here it is, the answer. It's all about knowing the why behind every single check. See, a professional driver, they don't just see a tire. They understand that if that tire is underinflated, it's going to build up heat, and that can lead to a dangerous blowout. They don't just glance at a mirror, they see it as a vital tool for wiping out those dangerous blind spots. It's this why that turns a simple checklist into a powerful, life-saving habit. Okay, so here's a quick look at our game plan. First up, we'll dig into that inspector's mindset. Then we'll talk all about visibility in C and B scene. After that, it's all about passenger safety first. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts with checking the vehicle's foundation. And finally, we'll pull it all together at the end. Sound good?
All right, let's kick things off with our first section, the inspector's mindset. And that subtitle there, it's more than a test, that's absolutely key. I mean, sure, passing the CDL exam is the goal, but adopting this mindset, that's what's going to make you a true professional for your whole career.
This quote right here, it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about. The whole point isn't just to find broken parts. It's about using what you find to make a huge decision. Is this bus safe to put on the road or not? Every little detail you check, that's a piece of data helping you make that critical call.
Okay, now let's move on to our second section, which builds right on that idea. C and B scene. I want you to think about your bus's lights and mirrors as more than just, lights and mirrors. They are your bus's communication system. It's how you tell other drivers what you're doing and how you see what they're about to do.
So as you're doing your walk around, you're looking at a whole bunch of lights, right? You've got your strobe light, those flashing amber lights, and literally every other light on the front, sides, and back. But here's the thing. It's not enough that the bulb just lights up. You've got to make sure those lenses and covers are clean and totally undamaged.
So what's the big deal? Why do we have to be so picky about those lenses? Well, think about it. A cracked or muddy lens can make your turn signal or your brake light practically invisible to the driver behind you, especially if it's super sunny or pouring rain. You think you're signaling, but your message is lost, and that's just asking for trouble.
All right, let's talk about the stop arm and safety arm. The process itself is pretty simple, right? You say what you're checking, you give them a good shake to make sure they're mounted securely, and you check the indicator light on the dash. But, and this is a big but, look at that examiner's note. You can't just point at it. You have to be able to explain in your own words what it does and why it's so incredibly important for keeping passengers safe.
As a bus driver, you're really managing two totally different worlds at the same time. You've got your internal mirrors, which lets you keep an eye on everything happening inside the bus. Then you have your external mirrors, which are your eyes and ears for everything happening outside. Both of these systems have to be perfectly clean, securely mounted, and adjusted just right to let you do your job safely.
Okay, let's step inside the bus for our third section, passenger safety first. We've made sure the outside of the bus can communicate clearly. Now we've got to make sure the inside, the cabin, is a safe and secure place for every single person who gets on board.
And the inspection inside has to be just as thorough. I mean, you're physically grabbing those handrails, giving them a good tug. You're pushing down on the seat cushions to make sure they are attached securely to the frame. And, of course, you're checking on critical equipment like the passenger lift and the first aid kit, making sure they're there, they're secure, and they're ready to go in an emergency.
Let's just pause on the seats for a second, because this quote right here explains the why perfectly. A loose seat cushion isn't just a little annoyance, it's a major safety hazard. If you have to slam on the brakes, or worse, if there's a crash, that seat and the person in it could go flying. Making sure it's bolted down tight to the frame isn't just a small detail, it's absolutely critical.
Okay, emergency exits. This is another area where the CDL test is very specific. You have to actually open and close at least one of them to prove it works smoothly. Then you've got to turn the key on and make sure those warning buzzers are working. And you're not done yet. You then have to point to all the other emergency exits, like the roof hatches and emergency windows, and explain out loud how each one works. So, why all the fuss? Why be so detailed? Because if an emergency happens, nobody has time to read a manual. You've got seconds. Every single person on that bus needs a clear, working way to get out. Your pre-trip inspection is your guarantee that if the worst happens, those escape routes are going to work exactly like they're supposed to.
All right, now we're moving on to the heavy-duty stuff. Section 4 is all about checking the vehicle's foundation. This is where we get down to the real mechanical systems, the parts that actually hold the bus up and bring it to a stop. This chart here breaks it down really well. You're not just glancing at the wheels, you're playing detective. You're looking for things like illegal welds on the rims, because that can cause the whole thing to fail. You're hunting for clues like rust streaks coming from the lug nuts, a dead giveaway they're loose, and the wheel could actually come off. And of course, you're checking that tire pressure, because an underinflated tire is the #1 reason for a blowout.
And your inspection doesn't stop there. You're looking underneath, at the frame. You're checking the U-bolts that hold the whole suspension together. You're tracing the brake hoses, looking for any cracks, bulges, or leaks. You're even making sure the fuel tank is strapped on tight. Any problem with these core systems is a huge, huge red flag.
And all of this brings us to our final section, connecting inspection to operation. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. It's where we take all these little checks and turn them into real, professional confidence in the machine you're about to drive.
And here's another golden nugget straight from the manual. The examiner needs to know that you get it, that you've really absorbed this stuff. They want to hear you explain the why behind what you're doing. If you can't put into your own words why something is important, then in their eyes, you haven't really learned it.
So we're kind of ending right back where we started, with the most important idea of the day. The whole inspector's mindset is about making that connection. That loose U-bolt you spotted? That's not just a failed item on a list. That's the critical piece of information that tells you this bus is not safe to drive today. That perfectly clean mirror? That's not just a piece of glass. It's the tool that lets you merge safely onto a busy highway.
So, I want to leave you with this one final thought. After everything we've talked about, the next time you do a walk around on your vehicle, what are you going to see differently? Are you just going to see a bunch of parts to check off a list, or are you going to see a complex safety system, a system that you are personally responsible for? Making that shift in how you see things, well, that is what makes you a true professional.